Like, I mean, this whole thing is one type of PN course, OVSF, and you can maintain orthogonality. Uh, Whatever the length of course are, you may take some course uh, at spreading factor 4, some maybe at spreading factor 32. These codes are of different lengths, but you will still have orthogonality. Okay, by orthogonality, I mean that you, I mean there will be, even when you have different length. Okay, but you will be repeating. But after repetition, there will still be orthogonality. When you have small length, then that length will get repeated. Okay, but there will still be orthogonality. Anyway, but you have to stop. I mean, you cannot take children of a particular code, because then you lose the orthogonality. But within this whole set, the orthogonality will be maintained. Okay. Yeah, someone
তাহলে
was
কি আমার এখানে SF32 এর মধ্যে মোট 13 টা
30.
আমার
I
অর্থোগোনাল
mean,
রিলেশনশিপ আছে।
there are. I mean, if you take all cores with 32 bits long, then there are 32 such codes possible. Okay. I mean, if I extended all the branches up to 32 level, then the number I would get here would be 32.
এখানে এই যে এই এক্সাম্পলটার মধ্যে আমার তো 13টা হচ্ছে অর্থোগোনাল রিলেশনশিপ দেখাচ্ছে। এটা কি আমার SF32 এর জন্য এই 13টা একটা আরেকটার সাথে অর্থোগোনালিটি মেইনটেইন করতেছে?
Well, I mean, if you say, if I extended this branch, this branch, this branch.
আমি এই এক্সাম্পলের কথা বলতেছি যে 32 যেটা ব্লু কালারের যে আমার 13টা পয়েন্ট সিলেক্ট করা আছে।
Right, right.
তো এই 13টা হচ্ছে আমার অর্থোগোনালিটি মেইনটেইন করতেছে।
Definitely, definitely, definitely. If you
বাকিগুলো করতেছে না, মানে বাকি যে
well,
SF32 এর মধ্যেই যে বাকিগুলো আছে ওগুলা করছে না।
well, you could take this one. You could assign. I mean, these are not just not. These are just not assigned. Okay, but you could assign this guy. Say, I mean, I'm pointing this one. Can you see where I'm placing my cursor? Okay.
Yes.
Then this guy you
Yes,
could
sir.
assign. This guy. They would also maintain orthogonality, because their parents are not assigned. As long as the parents are not assigned, you can assign that code. You could also assign this guy. You could also assign this guy. Okay. Or if you don't assign these two, you could assign this guy. However, you cannot assign this guy, because one of its children is already assigned. Similarly, you cannot assign this guy, because one of its children is already assigned. And of course, you cannot assign any of these white guys. Okay.
তার মানে
Because their children are all
লেভেলটা আছে, ওই লেভেল অনুযায়ী হচ্ছে আমার অর্থোগোনালিটি মেইনটেইন করবে। লাইক SF2 তে আমার দুইটা যদি ইউজ করা হতো তাহলে আর তার চিলড্রেন আমরা পেতাম না, তখন হচ্ছে ওই দুইটাই হচ্ছে আমার অর্থোগোনালিটি মেইনটেইন করবে। মানে লেভেলে আছে ওই লেভেলে হচ্ছে আমার অর্থোগোনালিটিটা মেইনটেইন করবে নিজেদের সাথে।
Exactly. And I mean, there would then be only 2 users in the cell. The number of cells cannot be more than 2. Okay. So, but these 2 guys would be able to operate at a very high data rate. Okay. Of course, we are still discussing the basic UMTS. I mean, we are not extending our discussion to HSDPA or HSPA plus. Okay, so the basic platform we are discussing for CDMA. So whenever I say that the data rate is very high, it's not actually high compared to what we enjoy these days. Okay, you can actually see here spreading factor. I mean, it's 960 kbps. So just use a ratio. it will be 4 times of this guy. Okay, so almost 4 Mbps. When your spreading factor is set to 2. Okay. I showed you the calculation with the spreading factor in the last class.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think it's clear now. We'll shortly wrap up this part. But before that, I just wanted to take a few minutes, like maybe 4 or 5 minutes to show you that there are a few steps in the physical layer of the process, and this I know it's not very clear, but probably you can at least read that at the final stage you do QPSK modulation. Okay, but before that, right before that, we have the scrambling operation. Okay, I'm going from down from the bottom, and probably you can understand that we had, we sprayed using OVSF code, but thereafter we do scrambling. So that scrambling operation is shown here, and thereafter you have the final modulation, QPSK modulation before transmission. So you have PN scrambling, and before that you have the spreading. Using OVSF code, you spread. Okay, and before that you are actually from the top. It's the transmission side. From the top, data is mapped to this part for this process. Like you have, like I said that there are 10 millisecond radio frames, one after another. Okay, and similar type of framing in time domain is also used for LTE. All technologies use framing in the time domain, and it's 10 millisecond also in 4G LTE. Okay, so that is kept the same deliberately. That just helps implementation when you keep it the same. Anyway, but before that, as you receive your data packet from upper layers, to fit in with this 10 millisecond frames, you may have to you may have to just handle in a way that you drop a few bits or you add a few bits, okay, to make sure that they match precisely. The number of bits you are receiving may not be originally matching precisely, so you may have to just rearrange a little bit, or do a few things like adding or repeating, and that is called rate matching. So this rate matching operation I was showing here, that you may be repeating a few bits, or you may be adding a few bits with no energy, or sometimes you may even drop a few bits, okay, expecting that the coding strength will be able to recover whatever you are dropping. So this is called rate matching. The data rate, the rate of bits you are receiving from upper layers may not be exactly matching the way you are setting at the bottom layer. Okay, so you are just a little bit process here. Yeah, and you have to add some CRC, or if it is not if you are not familiar with CRC, I'll talk about it later. This is just to, okay, it's discussed in the wireless communication course. Just to protect your cyclic redundancy check, it can tell you whether you have any bits in error or not. Okay. Okay. And you also have an operation interleaving, okay, that we discussed in the last semester. Okay, uh, so I think uh, it's just an initial idea about CDMA technology. Now we'll briefly talk about one particular process of UMTS using this CDMA, and that will be actually the last part of our discussion from CDMA. It is downlink synchronization. The same thing when we will discuss for LT. Hopefully, you will be able to have a good comparison between UMTS and LT. Of course, there are thousands of or hundreds of thousands of differences between 3G and 4G. But if we explain just one process, at least one process between them, then you can feel, okay, how things are becoming different. Now, this particular operation, downlink synchronization, takes place for any technology. Yeah, I mean, usually for most wireless technologies. And if it is cellular, then definitely you have it. Right after you power up your receiver. Okay, so when your UE is powered up, or it may have been powered up, but it may have lost services. So when it gets back the service, okay, then it will do this procedure, downlink synchronization. What that is, you have data transmission from the base station, and in order to be able to decode it, you need to know where you have the frame, where you have the different parts of data start. Like in the case of CDMA, we say that you have 10 millisecond frames, one after another. So the bits are sent continuously, okay, at 3.84 mega chip per second, or like megabits per second. You're sending the bits. So there is no discontinuity, but there are some markings, okay, conceptually, that your radio frame starts from there. From there, the next 10 millisecond will belong to one radio frame. Okay. This way, one after another, you keep sending radio frames. But from the receiving end, when you're receiving only the bits, okay, how do you mark? How do you know where the frames start? But if you fail to identify the starting point, you cannot actually process on the receiving side. And also, I mean, every radio frames are handled for different processes separately. Okay. So you have to know where they start. That is synchronization. That you know, in time domain, synchronization is meant for synchronization in time domain. You know where the frames start. Well,
sure.
Yeah.
This similar question I had, sir, I got disconnected at the beginning, so I couldn't ask.
Okay. Okay.
So is that it is actually related to synchronization, sir. Before CDMA code communication starts, how does the user know that I have to use this specific code to connect with the BTS? Or, sorry, in case of UMTS eNode B.
Right.
So is this also related to synchronization, sir?
That's a very good sign of curiosity, and we're going to answer this question here. Okay. So these basic questions will be answered here, will be made clear, inshallah. But one thing I should tell you right now, that until you do uh, some data transfer, okay, you will not be allocated OVSF code for your dedicated data transfer. Here, what we are talking about is some data transmission from the base station, and that just keep that just occurs always. It's a broadcast from the base station for everybody. Whether you do some data transfer or not, you can listen to it. But it's not some real data for you. However, when you have some data transfer, okay, then there will be relationship. I mean, in time domain, you actually have the same synchronization. I mean, what you listen here and what you listen for your data. But there are also uplink data transfer. There is some synchronization for uplink, which we will discuss later for LT. So you will then see that how I mean, up in the case of uplink, things has to be managed differently. Okay. Now, what really happens when you power up? First of all, a particular phone is developed with the support of particular bands of operation. This thing I actually touched upon in the wireless communication course. That say you may have, say, since we showed the bands for 2G in the last semester, so that can be taken an example. It's okay that 1900 band and say 1800 band. So if your phone has a support of these bands, then think of 2G. Okay, I mean it's the same for all these generations. So the first step for all technologies is that it will sweep through the. I mean, it's a scanning over the bands supported. If the phone supports 800 and 1900, 1900 and 1800 band, 900 and 1800 bands, these two bands, the whole range of the two bands will be scanned. It will sweep through the whole bands. Okay, you know that the whole band has certain range, and different operators will be allocated different parts of those bands. And it may also happen that only a small part of the whole band is allocated to operators, and the government didn't allocate the rest. But that doesn't matter. The phone is configured with a certain band, so the phone will scan the whole band, and then it will check where it finds some energy. Well, if you are in a, say, in North Pole, then of course you will not find energy in any of the bands. So when you power up, your phone will just keep scanning all the bands supported, but it doesn't find energy anywhere in the bands. Well, it doesn't. So after a while, it will again check, and frequently it will keep checking. That's all it does. So it will keep checking, and when it finds energy at certain range, then it assumes that there is some cellular operation over there. Okay, then it will check. Then it will check on that part, only on that part of frequencies, okay? And it tries to synchronize in the downlink for downlink operation. So that is what the downlink synchronization is. So it is the second step after you power up. The first step is that you sweep through the whole frequency band or frequency scanning, and then the second step is downlink synchronization. Now this synchronization, downlink synchronization, serves two purposes. The first I have already mentioned, that the downlink transmission always occurs for all technologies, occurs with some time domain markings. You have some frames transmitted one after another. So it finds out where the frames start. So that is dynamic synchronization. You align in time domain. But you need to fulfill a second purpose. Why is that? The second purpose actually I already touched upon in the last class. Well, you also need to identify how many base stations you are you are hearing from, or you uh, in real cellular environment you never receive from a single base station. Okay, you always have transmission from, I mean, the other base stations are really close to you, and from these nearby base stations the signal don't stop uh, anywhere at the boundaries, rather they pervade. So in reality we'll also demonstrate it using our practical classes. In reality you may have power from 10 different cells, I mean significant level of power. Okay, so when you are considering, of course, when you switch uh, through the frequencies, you consider significant level of power, but that significant level of power may be coming from already 10 different cells. Then, well, you actually need to distinguish. Okay, you are receiving from so many, so you have to be able to distinguish all these transmissions, the different base stations or the different cells, and then you can focus on one of them. The UE hooks up with just one cell. Okay, well, you may not confuse between base station and cell. A base station may have 3 cells or 2 cells or just one cell. Okay, but the phone hooks up with one cell. It's not the base station. So even when you are not doing any data transfer, it is hooked up with or it is anchored with just one particular cell, and that cell is typically selected with the maximum power level. Okay, I mean who it is hearing from with the highest signal power. So it turns out that you need to, when you have powered up, you need to be able to distinguish or separate all the transmissions from all different cells, and then you can compare, and then you can select which one is the best. If you are not able to distinguish, then how can you compare? How can you select? Okay, so you have to distinguish, and so for that purpose you actually need some identities, different identities for all these different cells. Okay, well, of course a particular cell has some formal identity, but when you are just powering up, then you are listening to its some common broadcast data. From this broadcast data you need to be able to find out some identity. So it's a preliminary level of identity of the cell, and there is also some higher level and formal identity. Every cell has some high level formal identity, different identity, formal identity, and it's actually even globally unique identity. But in the physical layer you need another preliminary identity, so you can distinguish when you are listening first to them. Okay, for when you just hear from them for the first time, so you can say. So that is also solved by the synchronization process. Okay, and for 2G, 3G, or 4G, I mean both purposes you have to fulfill, but it is getting smarter. The way you do is getting smarter. Okay, over the generations. So I'll show you how it is done in 3G. Okay, later we'll show the procedure for 4G. Now, in the case of 3G, it is done in 3 steps. It's called step 1, 2, and 3, and sometimes it is called step 1 by 2 by 3 procedure. Okay, because it's 3 steps. Step 1 by 2 by 3 procedure. Yes. Well, now just for this synchronization purpose, the UV has some separate transmission. The base station has some separate transmissions just for this purpose, and 3 different things it transmits for these 3 different steps. Well, you need to use, of course, OVSF codes for any transmissions, and the OVSF code used for these transmissions are fixed. Okay, so whenever you find energy somewhere in the frequency, you know that there is an operator transmitting here at these frequencies. So then you know that it will be transmitting something using certain OVSF code, for using a fixed OVSF code for my step 1. Now what it transmits? Well, it is called, what it transmits is called primary synchronization. Synchronization channel, PSCH, primary synchronization channel. Primary synchronization channel. So it sends some sequence of bits, okay, but it is considered to be occurring using a channel. Okay, although it's nothing but you just send a few bits, but you consider that it's a channel, channel transmission. And now we start using the term channel, and you'll see later that, well, there are many different types of transmissions for different purposes, different types of control purposes, and different data transmissions. So you call all of them channels. So you use the term channel to indicate their own status, that they are just different of type of operation. Okay. The purposes are different, so you call different channels. Now, primary synchronization channel. For step 2, there will be another transmission from the base station using another OVSF code, and you call it secondary synchronization channel, a transmission on secondary synchronization. Well, we mentioned, we have twofold purposes: finding out the frame boundary, radio frame boundary, 10 millisecond radio frame, and also finding out the identity of a cell. Now, we mentioned in the last class that the identities you use for this preliminary, at this preliminary level, are nothing but primary synchronization, primary scrambling code of for the cell. The cell transmits. The cell uses a fixed scrambling code for all of its downlink transmission. For uplink, it's not fixed, but in a cell, for uplink, different UEs use different fixed scrambling codes. Okay. Say user A has a certain scrambling code. He keeps using the same scrambling code. User B in the same cell has a different scrambling code. Okay, so all users have different scrambling code. But in the downlink, it will differ between cells. Every cell has the same uses the same scrambling code for all of its downlink transmission. Okay, so this scrambling code you can call an identity. That scrambling code you can repeat for another cell, but that cell has to be located far away. And then you actually know for sure that there will be no signal from there because it is too far. So it's okay. Then you can repeat. But how many should be the number of primary scrambling codes? Okay. Well, we may go back to that. We mentioned it the last class that 512. I mean, if you make it around 500, then it is safe enough. Okay, how many PSCs you should have available? So if it is around 500, if the number of PSCs available is around 500, then the designer or radio planners will not have any problem. They can repeat the PSC at enough far distance. Okay, so without any possibility of getting signal from there. So it's a number around 500. So it's 512 for 3G. We'll later see that for LTE it is 504. Okay, I mean it's not PSC, but the identity you use. So here PSC is not only a scrambling code, but it is also regarded as an identity preliminary level identity for a cell. Okay, because you're using the same PSC for all of the downlink transmission. So PSC is an identity for a cell, and that identity I have to determine. So which one from those 512? That's what we have to determine. So let's see how it is done. Very tricky. Okay, we're gonna see that it's a nice technique. The reason there's another reason I wanted to show you. It's really smart the way it is done in CDMA. Well, this primary scrambling, okay, the first step is primary synchronization channel. That is done. Well, we mentioned in the last class that 10 millisecond radio frame is split into 15 parts. Okay, so each part has, the whole length will transmit 38,400 chips. So each of these parts will have 2560 chips. Now you transmit for primary synchronization channel, okay, to help step 1, only just using 1/10 of the slot. In the rest part, you don't transmit anything. Why you don't do that? Because if you transmit in this part, it will be enough. So unnecessarily, you don't use any power, and that is very critical in CDMA. That if you can reduce the power level, power transmission, if you don't do any unnecessary transmission, then the background noise will be lower. Okay, so they feel like whiz or background sound when you have some transmission. So don't do any transmission unless it's essential. That's critically maintained in CDMA. So this part is just left blank. Well, in this part, what do you transmit? Well, you send some certain sequences, and that sequence is fixed for all operators in the whole world. All operators in the whole world send the same sequence. And I also said that it's the same OVSF code. It's the same OVSF code. So when you find some energy, there you try to find out whether or not you have this type of transmission. Well, now you actually have to be able to find, I mean, but how do you do that? Okay, you do that using the correlation. Okay, check you have the OBSF code, and so you try. Okay, but here the problem is that you don't know the scrambling code. So you have 512 different scrambling codes. You just keep trying uh, with 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 all these scrambling codes. Okay, I mean the OBSF code is fixed, but scrambling code is not. You have 512 options, so you have to. Sorry. Uh, uh, give me a second. Okay. Just give me a second. I will. Okay, I'll come back to this point. Okay. Well, sorry, I was little mistaken. I mean the scrambling operation you use later. Okay, for some other transmissions, not here. Okay. So here what you do, you have OBSF code, and that is also fixed. So you don't have to resolve. What you just find that whether or not you have this type of transmissions. Okay, so as you keep checking in the time domain, you know what bit sequence you should receive there and what OBSF code. So just keep checking whether or not you have it here or not. And as you find it, say you here you don't find, but here you find. Okay, again you find and you see that okay it lasts for 256 chips, then you don't find, again you find from here. So you can then find out the slots, the slot boundaries you know. So the first step will help you find out the slot boundaries. Okay, the slot boundaries, but you will keep checking where it has that particular transmission. In the second step, you use the same 256 chips, but with a different OBSF code. And here you send some different sequences. Okay, at different slots within the radio frame, and then the same okay, and you have certain sets here. Okay, I mean the secondary synchronization channel transmitted you use for use in step 2, and that is shown in green here. Now this you send something and there are differences among the slots, but the whole thing will be repeated in different radio frames. Every radio frame will have the same transmissions for secondary scrambling, secondary synchronization channel. Well, now here what you have 16 different options to transmit. 16 different options to transmit at these different slots. And we know that there are 15 slots. So you just take different, I mean, one of the 16 and transmit it one of the slots. Okay. Now the combination will take on different forms, and these forms are given in the spec. Okay, just please give me a second. I have. Okay, I'm sorry, I have got my keys around. So you in the on the different slots, you will pick the different. I mean, one of the 16 options, one of the 16 possibilities of the sequences. But the way you combine for the 15 slots will be selected from this table. This table is given in the specification, and it has to be one of the rows from the table. The table has 64 rows, and you pick from these 64 rows. Well, but which one do you pick? And you see that there are, I mean, a particular row has one of the 16 sequences, but there can be repetitions. Okay, the same sequence may repeat, like 5 5 we have, okay, here 2, again we have here 2, so there can be repetitions, but but there are actually certain properties. Okay, the property is that within this table, if any of the rows you rotate, it doesn't match another row. Meaning that if, say, I mean, this particular row marked with group 02, okay, if I rotate by 3 bits, by 3 steps, then say 15 will be the first one, then 5 5 there will be second, third, okay, 15 first, second and third will be 5 5, 12 will be fourth, this way on, and 1 will become the 15th one. But that type of sequence, that type of combination, you don't have on any other row. So that, I mean, no matter how many times you rotate, no row will match any other row. I mean, even when you rotate another row. So rotations don't I mean, destroy the the ability to uniquely identify a particular row. Okay. So if you have this a row set up, say on this 15, okay, anyone you set up here on the 15 slots, and the UV keep trying to identify, okay, when it identifies well, that I have here 1 2, as I mean, it complex identifying, okay, maybe it finds that I have here like this guy 1 2 3 1, okay. Well, maybe what happened, since you had only slot boundaries identified from step 1, you start identifying from here, because you don't know the starting point of the whole radio frame. Okay, I mean, this one you align with the radio frame. For the radio frame, you use 1 on the first slot, 2 on the second slot, 3 on the third slot. But on the receiving side, you don't know which one is the first slot, because in step 1 you identified only the slot boundary. So you may be starting from here. But as you find out the whole sequence 6, 5, 2, okay, you come back to 8. Well, then you know that it is actually this fourth one. I mean the one marked with group 3, because I mean it doesn't match any other row. Although you start from here, even from here, it doesn't match any other row. So you know that it is this one. And then you also know that for this row, this one starts from here, this one. Okay. So as you could identify the row, you could now identify the starting point. Okay. You started from here 6 when you were identifying, but at the end of identification, you know that, well, you have derived that it is this is the starting point. So you find out the beginning of the radio frame. So actually the alignment is complete. Okay. But we have a second purpose. For the second purpose, we have got some progress. Well, for the second purpose, the problem is that we have 512 different PSCs. To find out which one is the right, which one is the one used in your cell, the method you have is correlation. You have to check using correlation for different codes. Pick one PSC, correlate. Okay, if there is if you have low values, then it's not matching. So then pick another one, and that will be a long process with a big number 512, since there are 512 combinations. Okay. So what is done? This part is split into two steps. Okay, like we have step 1, 2, and 3. The alignment part, I have two purposes: alignment and determination of PSC in the cell. The alignment is done in step 1 and step 2, and the determination of PSC is done in step 2 and step 3. I mean both the functions use 2 steps. In step 2, I mean in step 1 you had some progress. You could find out the slot boundaries. In step 2 you could find out the radio frame boundary. You're done with the alignment. Now in step 2 you have some progress in finding out PSC. What that is? Well, you split your 512 PSCs into 64 groups. Okay, group 0, group 1, this way 64 groups you have. So each group will have 8 PSCs. 64 times 8, you have 512. So you have 64 groups, each with 8 different PSCs. Now, if your PSC belongs to, say, I mean, we use the example this guy, right? So if it is the, say, group 0, and then group 1, then group 2, there's the third group, and then group 3 will be the fourth group. Okay, if your PSC belongs to group 4, okay, I mean, and the fourth one, I mean the group 3, then in your cell you transmit this row. Okay, select this row for transmission. Now you see, when you performed the operation with I mean secondary SCH, and you found that this is what you had there. Okay, this row you have there. then actually you determine that it is group 3. Okay, so I mean the identification of this combination relates to group 3, and so you actually identify the group for your PSC. So you know that your PSC will be one of those 8, or the search space for PSC has been reduced from 512 to only 8. Previously, your PSC could be one of the 512. Now you know that it is one of 8. So the space has been reduced, and now it is not too difficult. Only 8 possibilities. Okay. So in the third stage, you find out which one from the 8. Okay. What do you do? You transmit something, and this time you scramble. Scramble using your PSC. In every slot, you send some sequence. Okay. Some fixed sequence. It is the same for all networks. I mean, for all cells in the anywhere in the world. And then the radio frame, 10 millisecond radio frame, you know, is scrambled with the PSC. So that you do for this transmission. Now this guy will again use some fixed OVSF code, and this transmission is called. It is also termed another channel, and it is called common pilot channel CPH. Common pilot channel CPH. Okay. Well, now on the receiving side, you don't know what the PSC is. So what do? You pick one of those 8 PSCs and check whether it matches or not. Okay, you correlate. Correlation is the method you have. So do that, use that, and check whether if it doesn't, pick the next PSC. So there will be, you need a maximum of 8 atoms to determine what the PSC you really have. Okay, or if you are lucky, then you know you can even successfully hit it at the first attempt, or maybe in the second or third attempt. Now, why you need all these steps? Okay, once again, it has been, I have mentioned, but let me draw your attention. See, here you could manage because the search space has been reduced to 8. Using your PSC, you do the correlation, and that's not easy. That's a long procedure. Okay. So you have to, you can't do it for a large number of possibilities. Now here, for alignment, okay, in every slot, you have to check which one matches. Well, and for that purpose, say when you find out that this one is the one, okay, so you find out that this is 6, this is 5, this is 2, but how do you find that? How do you know, how do you find that this is 6? Well, again, it's correlation. You take this one, okay, so maybe with this one you are so you have here 15 different possibilities. Sorry, 16 different possibilities. Try with one of them, and then another. So one after another, you keep trying and perform correlation. If there is pick, then you know that okay, it's matching. So it's 6, you got a pick, and with 1 you got low values, 2 you got low values. When you tried with the 6 number sequence, you got a pick. Similarly here again you keep trying, and then when you tried with 5, you got a pick. So you cannot do it. for many different possibilities. So the maximum possibility is 16. With 16 different variations you can, so it's manageable. But this thing you can do when you know the slot boundaries. Then this large process you can handle. So that's why in the first slot you need to find out the slot boundary, and from there you can do these operations. Okay. Uh, so the largest operation you have in the second step, so that you can manage. Okay. So since the slot boundaries are known, so you need a prior step 1 to know where the boundaries start. Okay, then you do. Okay. So probably it has been clear. Questions? Questions, please. It might not have been clear. Hey, guys. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, questions? Do you have any questions? Was it clear? It wasn't, right? Sorry for my poor explanation. But probably it has answered one question, that the OVSF codes, okay, how you assign them or how it is handled. Okay, you see that certain OVSF codes are used for control purposes, like the ones we have explained: this primary synchronization channel, secondary synchronization channel, common pilot channel. So for these things, the OVSF codes are held fixed. Okay, you don't have to declare anything. So I'm not saying that for all control channels it is fixed, okay, but for many of them it is. Now for data transfer, the OVSF codes are of course not fixed, but it is allocated to you when you want to begin the data transfer, not before that. When you are not doing any data transfer, say when you make a call, okay, then on the eve of the call, you will be assigned an OVSF code and you start using that. The other side receives a call, okay, he will be then assigned. So both sides. But after you terminate the call, that code will be taken away. You no longer own that code, or you cannot use that code for data transfer. And somebody else in the cell may be given that code. He will be using. Okay. And if you need some data transfer again, so you'll be assigned a code, but that code may be different. So OVSF codes are allocated as and when necessary for data transfer. But for control purposes, there are many different control channels, okay, for different purposes. So in many cases, you have the OVSF code fixed. But they are taking up some space. In the OVSF code tree, of course, you have some, the control channels are also taking up a part of the OVSF code tree. Okay, we'll call it OVSF code tree, or it is called OVSF code tree. And the one we showed, you have different branches. I'm talking about this one. This is your OVSF code tree. Okay. Okay, now questions. Uh, was it interesting? I mean, now at least you know that you need to align with downlink transmissions. Okay, they have some markings. Okay, I mean, you have a continuous flow of bits. The gap between your bits or symbols are the same always. Okay, or you just keep sending symbols one after another, essentially with no gap. But there are certain markings. Okay, certain points begin marking the beginning of your frames, or in time domain, you have sort of packets sent one after another. So you need to align first, and in fact, that's usually a requirement for communication technologies. Okay, in digital communication, you need to align. So that is usually the first step. Or I mean, one of the early steps. And secondly, I also explained that you need to be able to distinguish the cells and how it is done. Okay, so there's also a requirement for all different generations. Uh, so questions? We have just 3 minutes left. Questions? No question.
Currently, I have no questions, sir. But if you can, sir, upload today's class as soon as possible, we can rewatch it again.
I think I have uploaded
Today's class, sir.
but
Today's class.
yeah, okay. I believe I had uploaded it before I took the last class, but
Yes,
I will
sir.
double check.
You have
I'll double
uploaded the
check.
slides. Sir. You have uploaded the slide, but I was talking about the online lecture.
Oh, the online video. Okay, okay.
So,
Yeah.
so inshallah, we will watch it. Then, if we have questions, then inshallah, we'll discuss it in.
Oh.
That will be better.
Okay, meaning that does it mean that I couldn't clarify enough? Okay, in this live session, you have to go through it again.
So yeah, personally, I was away for Salat, so I couldn't follow much of the things. I don't know about others.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Since there are no questions, I think we can wrap up for today. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll begin. We'll have first an introduction of LT, and from there on, we will move on with LT from tomorrow. Okay. So after some introductory discussions, we will discuss this downlink synchronization as a first procedure for LTE to help you compare this procedure between 3G and 4G. Okay. Okay. Thank you for your time. Oh, yeah, Alavi, do you have a question? Oh, the reason you raised your hand, you wanted to say there are no questions. Okay. Okay, then let me wrap up. Assalamu alaikum.